In 1949, a newly integrated swimming pool at Fairground Park in St. Louis became the site of violent clashes when a race riot erupted between black and white swimmers. The situation escalated quickly, with thousands gathering, many armed with weapons like bats and bricks. A force of 200 to 400 police officers was dispatched to control the chaos, ultimately leading to the closure of the pool. This disturbing incident is just one example of the violence black people faced simply trying to enjoy swimming. Today, we'll explore the long history of why black individuals have faced barriers to accessing swimming. Before the transatlantic slave trade, swimming was a vital skill in many African societies, both for survival and recreation. Historical accounts show that swimming was common across various African cultures. Kevin Dawson, in Enslaved Swimmers and Divers in the Atlantic World, highlights that West Africans were known for their exceptional swimming abilities. These skills were put to use in the Americas, where enslaved Africans were tasked with retrieving goods from shipwrecks and fishing. Historian Jeff Wiltz noted that in the 19th century, people of African descent were often more proficient swimmers than their European counterparts. However, after slavery was abolished during the Reconstruction era and into the 20th century, Jim Crow laws systematically excluded black people from public facilities, including swimming pools. Segregation policies designated pools and beaches as white only, which led to a decline in swimming skills and a cultural disconnect from swimming in black communities. In the early 20th century, the U.S. experienced a boom in the construction of municipal swimming pools, with nearly 2,000 new pools built. This increase in public pools made swimming more popular across the country. However, racial exclusion marred this expansion, with African Americans often denied access to these new facilities. This lack of access hindered the integration of swimming into black culture. During the construction boom, pools were often built in working-class, immigrant, white neighborhoods in the North, while black communities were largely overlooked. From 1933 to 1943, the New Deal's Public Works Administration built around 1,000 pools, but most were located in white neighborhoods. In some cases, pools were segregated by gender, but as larger mixed-gender pools were constructed, they began to implement exclusionary practices against African Americans. These pools became social hubs for white communities, further deepening racial divisions and keeping black people out. As public pools became sites of racial tension, many white Americans resorted to violence to enforce segregation, viewing integrated pools as unacceptable. Racial exclusion was often enforced by police, city officials, or through threats of violence. In cities like St. Louis, where black residents made up nearly 15% of the population, the Fairground Park Pool, opened in 1913, was a prime example of this exclusion. Although the pool was intended as a grand recreational facility, it was reserved for white swimmers only. As swimming became more popular, discriminatory practices only grew more entrenched. The mid-20th century saw efforts to desegregate public pools, but these were often met with white flight, where white swimmers left for private clubs, further restricting access for black people. Cities like Chicago, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis saw violent confrontations between black individuals attempting to enter white-only pools. A notable moment in the civil rights movement occurred in St. Augustine, Florida, in 1964, when black protesters led by Martin Luther King Jr. jumped into an all-white motel pool. In response, the manager poured hydrochloric acid into the water. The image of this act became iconic, symbolizing the struggle for racial integration and sparking global outrage. Many local governments, however, chose to shut down their pools rather than integrate them, with some transferring ownership to private entities, which allowed them to maintain racial exclusion. Additionally, many municipalities constructed small, shallow pools in predominantly black neighborhoods, which were unsuitable for swimming lessons. This neglect contributed to the perception of swimming as a white, upper-class activity, further discouraging black families from participating. The legacy of racial exclusion in swimming persists today, making access to swimming facilities difficult for many marginalized communities. Private swim clubs and pools, which often require expensive membership fees, keep resources largely out of reach for black families. Financial barriers and economic challenges have made it harder for black communities to access swimming, leading to tragic consequences. For instance, in 2010, 6 teenagers drowned in Shreveport, Louisiana. A study by USA Swimming found that only 31% of Black children and teens were proficient swimmers, compared to 58% of their white peers. The study attributed limited access to swimming facilities as a key factor in this disparity. As a result, drowning continues to claim around 3,500 lives in the U.S. each year, with Black children aged 5 to 19 being 5 times more likely to drown in swimming pools than white children. In conclusion, teaching swimming in the U.S. typically falls to parents, unlike in the U.K., where it is part of the national curriculum. While some parents prioritize swimming lessons, the lack of a nationwide requirement means swimming education isn't universally emphasized. Concerns about drowning and, in some cases, hair maintenance, particularly for Black women, have contributed to reluctance to swim. Efforts to improve swimming education and dismantle misconceptions are underway, with programs promoting water safety and swimming lessons as essential life skills. Addressing disparities in swimming proficiency requires targeted interventions to ensure equitable access, especially in marginalized communities. Organizations like USA Swimming and the YMCA are working to bridge the education gap, with USA Swimming's Make a Splash campaign emphasizing the life-saving importance of swimming education, likening it to other essential safety measures like seat belts and bike helmets. While progress has been made, overcoming the historical challenges remains difficult due to insufficient education and the ongoing fear of water in some Black communities. By supporting these initiatives, future generations can gain critical life skills and open up opportunities that were historically denied to Black communities.